Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by FOCUS Enviro. My name is Katie and I'm your host for today, and our guest speaker is Gary Moore, and he is Director of Global Business Development for UNTHA Shredding Technology. FOCUS is UNTHA's exclusive distributor in Australia, so the two companies have joined forces for our straight talking session today, all about single-step alternative fuel production. You may note from my accent that we are broadcasting from the UK this morning, which is where Gary and I are both based. It's 1 AM here right now, so we've had plenty of coffee and hope we can bring you lots of thought-provoking information over the next hour or so. We do have a lot to get through, so quickly just to cover a little bit of housekeeping before we begin the core slides for today. We plan to go through the content as quickly as we can. That's purely to leave you some time at the end to ask any questions that you might have. You should hopefully see a panel on the right hand side of your screen that allows you to type questions in as we go, and as I say, we'll cover as many of those questions as possible at the end. If you want to minimise that panel at any time, just use the orange arrow, and you can use the same arrow to open it up again in case that gets in the way of the screen content. If you log off by accident or lose connection at any point, you can use the registration link that was sent to you in the webinar invitation to rejoin. We are recording the event, so later today you will receive a link to listen again, and there's also the option for us to send you a copy of the slides inclusive of the notes if you want to go through any of the content again in a little more detail. We'll also make sure that we include contact details for FOCUS Enviro and Gary Moore in that follow-up email, so that if you want to ask any questions in a more one-to-one setting, you are welcome to do so on the back of that. So in terms of the topic for today, as I said, we're here to discuss profitable one-step alternative fuel production. And in doing so, we've got a number of slides that are going to talk you through the variety of alternative fuels that exist in the global marketplace right now. We're going to start to explore some of the untapped opportunities that exist in the Australian market, particularly when it comes to this waste-to-energy sector. We'll start to think about how to manufacture these fuels safely with minimal energy usage and maximum profitability. And we'll even give you some advice as to what to begin to look for if you plan to procure waste machinery to manufacture these fuels. As I said, we've got the question and answer session at the end as well. So please do post any questions that you've got in there. We won't ask you to speak them live on air. You can purely type them into the box and we'll go through as many of those as we can at the end. That's all of the housekeeping covered. As I said, we've a lot to get through, so I will hand over to Gary, who's going to be our speaker for today. Thank you, everyone.
Katie, thank you very much for that introduction. Excellent as always. So, as we are presenting on a truly global stage, let me open by saying good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Gary Moore, and as you can see from the slide, I've gained some considerable experience in delivering the correct shredding technology and solutions to suit customers' many applications. The majority of these in the alternative fuels markets. With extensive knowledge of UNTHA's world-leading shredding technology, I am responsible for new business development and key account management, proactively seeking out fresh project opportunities, especially within the alternative fuels, the RDF, SRF, PEF and TDF market sectors. I work alongside senior waste and recycling decision makers to devise shredding solutions that will achieve their business objectives. I have over 25 years global shredding experience and having joined UNTHA in 2015, I have a director level role across Europe, Australasia and USA, with my own base being the UK as sales director. I have responsibility for strategic growth and developments of the Australian market for the waste and recycling product range and the USA for the waste range. Working alongside our Australian sole distributor, FOCUS Enviro, we continue to penetrate the alternative fuels market for UNTHA's revolutionary XR static and mobile shredder, designing and supplying best fit client-centric shredding solutions for a wide range of UNTHA potential and existing clients. Since the company was founded in 1970, UNTHA has been fulfilling its promise to be the reliable brand, meaning that we do everything we can to be more reliable than other providers. This applies to all UNTHA products and services. For our customers, this means that choosing an UNTHA system was the best decision they could make. And some key facts are 10,000 and growing daily successfully implemented shredding solutions, 80% in-house production, which is made in Austria, 4 subsidiaries and sales in over 40 countries, 64 service and sales partners worldwide, thousands of individually tailored adaptations to suit customers' requirements, 300 highly qualified employees worldwide, and 50 years know-how and experience. And this has culminated last year in 50 years of shredding experience and excellence, being our 50 years in business, our 50 years anniversary, no less. Katie, next slide, please. So why is alternative fuel production such a hot topic? Ask most people what they would see here, and they would tell you a pile of rubbish or trash, and they would be right. But gradually we're seeing a mindset shift in terms of attitudes towards waste, because of much of what you see here still as a valuable resource. And that's why I've been asked to come and speak to you today, over 10,000 miles away from where I live, as Katie has previously mentioned, in the UK, to talk about alternative fuels. Globally, waste has never been such a hot topic, and that trend is certainly being witnessed here in Australia too. Environmental pressures are mounting, and the ability for nations to turn a blind eye is now impossible. Waste was once a concern only for those in industry. Now it's a priority for the masses. The general public is sitting up and paying attention. Thankfully, recycling rates in this country are rising, and that change was needed. I'm sure that you'll agree that Australia's green performance hasn't always compared to that of other developed countries, but great strides have been witnessed, particularly in the last few years. But there's still a long way to go, which is undoubtedly why the government is backing this eco drive, having announced a ban on exporting recycled materials in recent times. This was a bold pledge, but why should you be letting go of a valuable resource that you could harness the value from? And that would be yourselves here in this country, or rather should I say in Australia. Recycling creates jobs, reduces reliance on raw materials, boosts resource security, better protects the world's resources, and can generate revenue for those involved in the sector. But what happens next? Of course, you need to further invest in your infrastructure so that you have the ability to undertake more recycling processes yourself and the capacity to then turn these recyclables into something new. But I think there's even more to be done. Yes, the priority should always be the reduction of waste at source. Then there's the reuse and recycling of materials. But it's possible to do something with the residual materials too, transform them into a renewable fuel source for energy recovery. In terms of that transformation process, there are a number of input materials or waste streams capable of being turned into an alternative fuel. And I've included a selection on the screen for you. I'm mindful that some of you will know quite a lot about these topics already, whereas for others, the topic of alternative fuel production will be relatively new. I therefore don't want to patronise anybody by going into detail that you're already incredibly familiar with. But at the same time, I don't want to simply assume that we're all on the same page. So before we delve into the detail about how to manufacture such fuels, I think it's firstly important to explain what they are. And to do this, we need to understand what the acronyms are. As a group, they represent a type of renewable fuel that can be manufactured from sorted, shredded material arisings that most people would simply consider waste. Once produced, these fuels can be used as an energy source in facilities such as power plants and cement kilns. Instead of these operators relying on ever-depleting fossil fuels such as coal, oil and gas. While all fuels you see on the screen will have been manufactured following a rigorous treatment process, generally speaking, the following applies. RDF is usually the least refined fuel type, and RDF is a fuel produced by shredding and dehydrating solid waste. RDF consists largely of the combustible components in municipal waste such as plastics and biodegradable waste, and has a lower calorific value than solid recovered fuel, being SRF. For companies looking to achieve zero waste to landfill, converting some of their waste into RDF is a great solution. Rubbish or trash that would otherwise end up sitting in a landfill site is instead put to good use as an alternative to fossil fuels. RDF can be made from municipal solid waste, MSW, and commercial industrial waste, C&I. Specifically, RDF consists of combustible materials such as non-recyclable plastics and paper, which can be burnt to create energy. There is currently no universal exact classification or specification which is used for RDF. Even legislative authorities have not yet established any exact guidelines on the type and composition for this type of alternative fuel. However, most RDF is typically sub 400 mil, and refined RDF is 60 to 80 mil. There are also various subtypes of RDF, such as tie-derived fuel, TDF, and solid recovered fuels, SRF. Solid recovered fuel, SRF, on the other hand, is the most sophisticated in terms of defined particle sizing and calorific value of the fraction. SRF fuel production from the UK is mainly 18 to 20 megajoules, moisture, ash less than 15%, and chlorine less than 1%. Fuel production is made up from MRF residue from C&D, C&I waste streams and processed to sub 30 mil specification. No waste containing organics from food streams are permitted within the specification of the fuel. The material is pre-treated through shredding, screens, air separators, metal separation, optical sensors, picking lines to remove that commodity being wood, rubble, PVC, and hard plastics that cause high chlorine levels. However, innovational technology has meant that we can now produce SRF in a single pass shredding solution, which we have collectively termed Quick SRF. Final material is the residual waste shred with a nominal 30 mil particle size. End product is then analysed to check quality meets specification, and the specification generally consists of about 18 to 20 megajoules, ash less than 15%, moisture less than 15%, I think we may have lost a little bit of contact there, but I'm back now. So looking at PEF, PEF is a term more commonly used in Australia as opposed to the UK, and in truth is used interchangeably to describe both RDF and SRF. And TDF, as the name suggests, is a fuel made from tyres. Tie-derived fuel, or TDF as it is more commonly known in the waste recovery sector, is an extremely well-used and market-mature product. Tie-derived fuel is made by reducing end-of-life automotive tyres into shred. The tyres go through a shredding process that takes the tyres into a product typically sized between 25 mil to 100 mil to burn as a fuel source. Through this process, most of the steel in the tyres is removed, and along with much of the fibre. Tie-derived fuel is widely regarded as a viable alternative fossil fuel, producing a similar amount of energy as oil and up to 20% more energy than coal. Tie-derived fuel produces less moisture, sulfur, nitrogen, and ash residues, which results in lower carbon emissions for the environment. In simple terms, however, thanks to technological innovation, each of these fuels can be manufactured to a predetermined specification. either set by industry or the actual user of the fuel. There are various routes to market for these fuels. In the European cement industry, for example, a number of operators now produce their own RDF, PEF, and so on to boost their environmental agenda and reduce their reliance on fossil fuels. Other organisations buy RDF and PEF from the fuel producers for the same reasons, which represents a fantastic revenue stream for the organisations concerned. Some specialists are already exploring this market in Australia, and ideally we want to see much, much more of it. But recovery effectiveness starts with defining the perfect shredder specification. Get this right and the payback period for the equipment will soon be accelerated, plus the margins maximised, especially if you can produce a fuel in one step, i.e. one machine. So what exactly should operators look for? We've mentioned time and time again in supplying shredding equipment that there's no such thing as one size fits all. The UNTHA XR is naturally the alternative fuel production shredder I know most about. And in the simplest terms, this is one machine capable of manufacturing these fuels in a single step. However, there are thousands of possibilities when it comes to the XR because it is ultra configurable. To start with, we have the reliable pre-shredding RC cutting system. This machine was specifically developed for the coarse pre-shredding of difficult material flows and for high throughput rates of up to 70 tons per hour. The purpose-designed style of the cutters ensures a particularly aggressive intake behaviour for the material. The cutters and the stator bar may be re-hard faced at the end of a specific service life and then put back into service to start again. Materials processed with the RC include commercial industrial waste, C&I, domestic waste, bulky waste, waste wooden pallets, production waste, plastic bowels, and so much more. Obtainable fraction sizes for the RC cutting system are typically 100 to 300 mil. We then move on to the efficient medium shredding system, which is the C cutting system. This machine was developed for the single pass shredding of different material flows to a defined fraction size. This is depending on the requirements and the diameter of the perforated screen, and up to 4 rows of blades on the rotor ensure high throughput rates. The indexable inserts and stator bars may be used in 4 different ways and are easy to quick and replace. Materials that we can process with a C include, again, commercial industrial waste, domestic bulky waste, waste wooden pallets, but there we move on to more difficult problematic materials such as ragga and pulper ropes, production waste, scrap aluminium and PVC window profiles, cables and electronic waste, and of course tyres for TDF production. Obtainable fraction sizes for the C range are typically between 45 and 130 mil. So last but not least, we move on to the perfect post-shredding machine, which is the XC cutting system. And this machine was designed for processing pre-treated or FE separated materials that are destined for material or thermal recovery. The tangential cutters and stator bars may be used in 4 different ways, and again, like the C, are easy and quick to change. Materials processed with the XC pretty much include all pre-treated or FE separated material flows. Obtainable fraction sizes are between 15 and 80 mil. And it is even available as a static or mobile operation, depending on the requirements of the operator. Above all, the shredder should be capable of performing the job that it was purchased to do. And however experienced you are as an operator, you shouldn't be expected to know exactly which machine is right for the job. That's the job of the vendor. 4 key questions any responsible machine manufacturer should ask their customers are: what do you want to shred, and what is the largest bulky item that needs shredding? What throughput do you require? What nominal particle size is required? And what is your downstream process? The answers to these questions will give the supplier enough information to start the conversation. Now, I'm mindful that you may not be speaking to FOCUS Enviro or UNTHA about your shredder investment. So if you're already in talks with another manufacturer, these are some of the things that I particularly recommend that you look out for. If the supplier can't talk confidently about these 8 topic areas, I would really encourage you to think about whether the shredder is fit for purpose or not. Of course, you're going to care about the numbers too. The topic of this presentation is profitable alternative fuel production after all. So ask the shredder supplier this specific question. How is profitability engineered into the shredder by design? For example, when the technology is driven by energy efficient electric drive motors rather than diesel hungry alternatives, the savings are vast, both in terms of financial and environmental gain. Depending on the operating hours of a shredding line, fuel consumption savings can reach hundreds of thousands of dollars over any given 5-year period. Such savings will soon accelerate the payback period of the capital investment and maximize the margins the operator is able to make from their plant. From that point onward, electrically driven shredders can help often lower insurance premiums too and have much lower maintenance requirements. The UNTHA XR systems are known to be up to 75% more energy efficient than its diesel driven counterparts. So you're then in a great position to build your business case for the shredder investment. The price tag matters, of course, although different finance routes can make things more affordable for organisations that need to spread the cost. However, other metrics are also important. It's crucial to calculate ongoing wear costs, as this will rapidly inflate the financial impact of the investment, as well as power consumption, as I've already said, possible revenue streams from the sale of the fuel, and many more metrics. If in any doubt regarding how to build the perfect business case, ask the shredder supplier to help. This exercise should be very straightforward for them. Now, I'm not going to read through these case studies word for word, as you will receive a copy of these slides hopefully tomorrow, but I wanted to show you that the XR is a world-class, globally proven piece of machinery that has transformed the alternative fuel production lines of companies hundreds of times over. Here in Vietnam, it transformed footwear production waste into a cement fuel, for example. We've also worked with Geocycle all over the world. So in South Carolina, they switched out their incumbent machinery manufactured by our competitors in favour of the XR series. In the UK, I've worked closely with Jim Entwistle from Lancashire. And we should be back again. In the UK, I've worked closely with Jim Entwistle from Lancashire Waste. He has a fleet of our XRs because he is such a high-profile fuel producer. And as the information on screen shows, we have transformed his business in terms of capacity and profitability. And a nice quote here from Nikolai to emphasize what I said earlier about the flexibility of this technology. We want to future-proof your investment after all, so that you can handle different input materials and manufacture different alternative fuel specs. Ours is an industry rich with knowledge, so ask your shredder provider if they can show you the machine in action, because seeing is believing. Plus, a visit to a reference site often allows you to speak to existing operators. You may even be able to organise a trial of a demo unit using your own materials. And profit is not a dirty word. The world is changing, and we all need to do more to protect the sustainability of our planet. But at the same time as being environmentally responsibility, there is no shame in seeking to be commercially robust. As I've said, profit is not a dirty word, and in fact, being more resource efficient and more profitable often goes hand in hand. Everything we do at UNTHA and FOCUS Enviro is designed to help customers build sustainable and scalable businesses with maximum profitability in mind. Now, I know your time is important, so I thank you for attending this webinar. I do apologise for a couple of dropouts on there. I would imagine it's the 10,000 miles that's caused that. I would now be happy to answer any questions you may have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. We do have some questions in already. So for those of you that haven't asked your question yet, please do use the chat panel on the right-hand side if there's anything you want to know. Gary, a question here about throughputs. You mentioned quick SRF. So quick SRF throughputs, it does depend on the input material, as we know. What throughputs can you typically achieve from the XR?
Again, Katie, yeah, typically it is dependent on throughput. But we would be seeing anywhere from probably 12 to 16 tons per hour.
Okay, thank you very much. Someone with an eagle eye noticed that there was a magnet on the belt of the machine shown on one of the earlier slides. Is that supplied with the shredder as standard?
It is, yes. Any of the crossbelt magnet is supplied as a standard component with the mobile machines. Obviously, with a crossbelt magnet, is pulling. If we're producing TDF, it's pulling that free wire off of there. Or in the case of some of the residual waste that we're putting through there, it's pulling all of that ferrous, such as used beverage containers, this type of material from the product as well.
Thank you. Someone has asked, should alternative fuel production always be done in a single step? Is there a rationale to, in some cases, have more than one machine?
Yeah, I mean, there is always a rationale for other machines. I mean, going back to the old days several years ago, typical SRF systems were composed of a number of shredders, trommels, drying systems. What we're able to do now is, because some of the waste to energy plants can take a better range of products in, it's enabled us to produce in a single step that what we call quick SRF. However, if we are putting secondary shredding systems on, what we tend to do there, pre-shred to a larger product size. That secondary shredder then we use for knocking it down to that ultimate product size required for the fuel, and the combined shredding systems will then increase the throughput.
Thank you, Gary. Someone has asked, they noted what you mentioned earlier on in the presentation about the UK market perhaps being a little bit more mature. They've asked what trends we're seeing here in the UK at the moment in terms of input materials.
Yeah, we are. I mean, going back to the beginning of last year, figures are a little bit skewed for, since we've had the pandemic. But, we were exporting into Europe from the UK around 3 million tons of RDF and SRF per annum. What we're starting to see now that a lot more waste to energy plants are being built in the UK. So a lot more of that fuel is now, rather than going into Europe, is being used at home, just as it will do in Australia, rather than Australia exporting the products. As waste to energy plants start to come online, then you'll be using your own fuel to power those plants.
Thank you. Someone has asked about the availability of videos, and I can answer this question myself. We do have a massively stocked library of videos. So if there is a particular application that you would like to see the XR shredding, or a specific type of fuel that you would like to see it manufacturing, please let us know in response to the follow-up email we send tomorrow, and we're happy to supply as many videos as we can. Someone has asked about maintenance, Gary. Is it maintenance friendly without service and maintenance support from the vendor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the machines, the innovational approach and design that we look at when we're manufacturing these machines is that we do make them very maintenance friendly. in terms of changing the cutter sets. We literally have an hydraulic door that opens up. The operator or the maintenance engineer can work very ergonomically at the correct height on the machine. The cutters are held in by a single bolt, so when we're actually turning the cutters round and indexing it, it's a single bolt that we loosen, spin round, retorque up. We do that depending on how many cutting rows, but yeah, very, very maintenance friendly.
Thank you. In terms of deciding whether to invest in a static or mobile machine, what would be typically some of the criteria that would define the decision for the operator?
I think if you've already got the building and the premises, then it would pretty much, make a lot of sense that, if you've got an existing business where and a mature business where waste is coming into that plant, then it would make sense that you have a static plant, a static machine in that facility. If, however, that you have various sites, or you want to volume reduce and process that waste at source out on a remote site somewhere, then you can actually, with the mobile version, you can take the shredder, to the mountain, and then obviously volume reduce it at source and then transport it back. So you are saving on the transport logistic cost there.
Thank you. Ben has asked, in terms of flexibility, to confirm, can one machine handle different input materials if that operator is quite a diverse, perhaps, waste handler?
Absolutely. I mean, again, looking at the innovational approach to how we design these machines, the overriding benefit of the XR series machine is the vast range of material that we can process. And we have these machines. Some companies out there are only processing wood waste. Others are processing only C&D and C&I. Others are processing tires. But then we have companies that have a really mixed and varied waste range, where they're bringing in skip waste, where they're bringing in oversized bulky waste. So yeah, very, very versatile machine that can take all of that different waste product.
Thank you. Someone has asked, Gary, in terms of bulky waste, I know that was mentioned as an input material on one of the earlier slides. How bulky are we talking? How much can the XR withstand?
Yeah, pretty bulky, because what we actually have in the XR, we have a very, very long cutting chamber. So unlike some of our competitors there, where the machine actually looks a lot bigger than it actually is, but the cutting chamber is only anywhere from 1.5 to 2 meters long. And then what they have is they have a feed-in hopper that lifts up to feed the material into the hopper. The XR series of machine as an oversized feed hopper. So the length of our cutting chamber and the length of the rotor is 3 meters. We have a very large diameter rotor again, which is 1 meter in diameter. But to assist all of that bulky waste processing, we have an integral ram assist assembly. So when you're starting to look at bulky waste, yeah, we can handle some very, very big bulky products.
In terms of the in-feed options, Gary, the XR can be fed in a number of ways, can't it?
Yep, every machine is pretty much every XR series machine has it's supplied with what we call a 3 or 4-sided hopper. So when it comes and the 4-sided hopper is completely bolted together, the machine can be grab fed. When the front section of the hopper is removed, we have a very low entry level that we can feed with a front end loader bucket, or we can conveyor feed into the shredder as well. So you have a number of different options on getting material into that cutting chamber.
Thank you. Someone has asked specifically about the biomass market. What experience do you have in that field?
Yep, plenty of experience. I mean, we supply a lot of the XR machines for wood waste biomass production. We typically have a specification in the UK. Well, we have several specifications for biomass production, which is G30, G50, or P63, and we can conform to all of those different biomass requirements, and we can process the full range of wood waste to meet those biomass requirements, whether that be, very good quality A grade, all the way down to very poor quality C and D grade.
Thank you. Mattresses. There's just a question that says mattresses ? So I presume it means, can it shred mattresses? And we know the answer to that question is yes.
Absolutely, we love mattresses, or rather the XR series love mattresses. I mean, we do have systems running, single and dual systems. Typically on looking at mattress processing, we again use the XR series machine. It will be the C version. We use the C version with 2 knife rows, and we typically use either a 50 or a 70 mil screen. And again, it's a single step process. And what we're doing in that single step process is when we drop that out onto the conveyor, and then under the crossbelt magnet, we're separating the ferrous from the textile. So what you actually do is you get a very good premium price for your ferrous carbon steel that you've removed, and the remaining product, the flock, is carried over, and that flock again is used as a thermal insulation material substitute, or can be mixed with an SRF product.
Thank you. We have 2 questions left, so I will wrap up. If anyone does have any further questions to ask, please just type them into the panel now. We've talked today naturally about alternative fuel production, but can this machine be used as a recycling shredder for the likes of e-scrap?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is one of the beauties about, just how versatile the machine is for processing varied waste. And again, one of our customers over in Australia, based near Melbourne, they have been using their XR for e-scrap and we-scrap processing, on small domestic appliances, on IT-based computer scrap. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you. And the final question is actually linked to that in terms of reference sites available in Australia. What advice would you give to someone if they do want to learn more about this machine, or about how FOCUS and UNTHA can help them?
The guys that we've got working for us or working with us, should I say, FOCUS Enviro, we've got Robbie and Ryan. These guys are very savvy, very experienced on how the machines operate. There's machines running in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and these guys are the go-to guys. So initially, if you need any information, or you need a trial of the machine, then speak to Robbie or Ryan. These guys will set the trial up for you. They actually have, I think at the moment there's 3 machines actually running in Australia, maybe 4. There's another 3 machines that have been ordered and are actually en route to Australia at the moment. So the guys at FOCUS Enviro really know the products. They've been over the factory. They've been factory trained. So yeah, it's great to have these guys as a partner locally on the ground over there.
Thank you. We do have some more questions, Gary, if you could stay with us for a tiny bit longer. In terms of handling unshreddable material, can you talk to our guests, please, about the technology or the system in place to protect the rotor from damage?
Yeah, we actually have 2 approaches to what we call intrinsic protection of the machine. The first being the standard, the old style amperage overload protection. So if we've got that potential unshreddable in there, which may be a real big heavy piece of steel, maybe a big engine block or something like that has gone in there, what we will do is, as we're looking at when we first approach that to shred, the amperage will build up on the machine to a certain preset point, and then the machine will go into reverse. It will tell you that there's a disturbance, and then you can hydraulically open by pressing the buttons on the control panel. The access door will lift open. You press 2 more buttons, and the rotor will counter rotate at 2 RPM, and it will flick the offending item out the shredder. The second level of intrinsic protection for very, very severe potential unshreddables is that it's fitted with a clutch system. So that disengages the mechanical drive to make sure that you've got the extra protection there. And as a sort of third method of intrinsic protection, we are talking about low speed, high torque equipment. So this is not as if the machine is turning at 400, 500, 600 RPM with a lot of inertia behind it. It's running typically anywhere from 30 up to around about 64 RPM. So we're not generating a lot of inertia, and we can pretty much stop that machine before any damage is done.
Thank you. A couple of people asking there about how the machine deals with contaminants, so thank you for that. Fire suppression, someone has asked about that. We do know that waste shredding is an inherently hazardous process, so is the machine supplied with inbuilt fire suppression?
It can be. It isn't supplied as standard. It's one of those things that some customers you know, will have buildings that already have their own fire protection and fire suppression installed, but we do supply as an add-on, as an optional extra fire suppression system. So yes, it is available.
Thank you. There's another question that says maximum capacity of the XR. One person's asked per hour, one person's asked per day. So can you just talk us through that? And I know there are variables here.
Yeah, pretty much. If we're looking at the RC, which is, you know, I earlier on in the conversation, I gave you the objective range of what we can shred in terms of nominal product sizing. The RC will typically shred up to 70 ton per hour. With the C version, we can typically process normally between anywhere between 30 and 40 ton per hour, depending on the material. If we're looking at taking that down to a 30 mil SRF, we're typically going to be processing up to 16 ton an hour. And then again, if we're using the XC machine, most of the material has already been pre-shredded and the contaminants removed. So again, we're around about the 20 ton an hour on that machine.
Thank you. More questions coming in. Keep them coming if you do have more. Gary, how effective is the belt magnet after a pre-shred?
Superbly effective. This is an IFE, very, very heavy duty cross belt magnet, around about 12,000 Gauss. The way that we actually shred the material and drop it onto the horizontal up to the incline belt creates a very low burden depth. So not only do we have a very strong magnet being able to cut through that product to pull the ferrous off, but we also have a low burden depth on the belt, which makes it much easier as well. And again, there are some customers that have chosen not only the cross belt magnet, but we do an option where we can also fit a permanent head magnet to the top of the pulley drive on the discharge incline discharge conveyor, and this really just takes care of any of those small odd pieces of ferrous that has crept through.
Thank you, Gary. That does wrap up the questions. We don't have any more. So thank you, everyone, for attending today's session. We will, as I said earlier, be sending you a copy of the recording today and a copy of the slides should you wish. And if I have missed any questions, because we lost connection at some points, if I have missed any questions, please do respond to that email and we'll be happy to answer them in a one-to-one setting. Thank you again for joining us. We hope you have found it useful. There is a lot of content to cover. Any final words from you, Gary?
Yes, I would just like to say, you know, thank you to all the guys over there in Australia for listening in. You know, obviously with the pandemic, you know, continue to stay safe. I would love to be over there in October to visit the Waste Expo, and I know I met some good guys over there when I was last over there, just before the pandemic stopped me traveling. But hopefully, looking forward to see you again very soon. So many thanks for listening in, guys.
Thank you, everyone, and you have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.